I'd like to talk about in this video a very interesting little theory. And the theory is the result of our world. So bear with me and believe what I'm trying to say, at least for a little bit, as we get closer to the full explanation. Nothingness wanted to become somethingness. Nothingness is potential. Nothingness is like a void of creative stuff that can become something. So nothingness became something, and then it wanted to become nothingness again. But it already created something, and at that point it was too late. Because in reality there is no undoing anything anymore. It created the something, and then after it created the positive energy, which is the something, it wanted to go back to being nothing. And the byproduct of that desire to want to go back to being nothing was negative energy. And whether you believe the body is positive and the soul is negative or whatever, we know that the thought is negative. I believe that the body is positive, the soul is negative, and the thought is following the negative, following the soul. So negativity is really the center of the trajectory that we're pointing towards. Therefore, if you want to go towards the right direction, you have to kind of walk backwards. You have to kind of realize that there was nothing but potential. It became something. But it wanted to go back to being nothing. But that was not possible, so that created a negative energy. The opposite of what was created, wanted to take it all back. And so that this positive something that created was the body, the earth, the 3D, the physical, the infinite universes. The wanting to become something, the wanting to undo that and become nothing again, was the creation of negativity. That's the creation of spirituality. Spirituality is negative energy. That's how you can see the physical. You can't see the spiritual. It's the negative. It's the anti. It's the opposite of the physical. And it was too late at that point, because in reality there was no undoing. And when it said basically, okay, I can't do this anymore, I created something, it became, I can't undo that. That's the creation of the mind. And there you have the Trinity. The mind is that energy that says, I can't undo this something that I created. There you go. Is life a tragedy? I don't know. It's up to you to decide if you believe life is a tragedy. But the body and earth and 3D and physicality is positive. The soul is negative, and thought is following the negative. Thought, the astral, the mind, is also negative. It inclines towards negative. That's why you have the Trinity, right? Body, mind, and soul. That's why it says God created the heavens and the earth. And that's why it says that He created also, or rather put the firmament between the heaven and the earth. In other words, He put there was that thought that said, I can't undo it. And now we have to, we can't, because He created the heaven and the earth, and He put a firmament in between. That's the mind. That's first there's the heaven, and there's the earth, and there's that. Different creation stories. Different words don't mean this. Words don't mean anything. But you get the idea. So now, if one was to, well, let's break it down. If somebody still wants to think that there is nothing here, then they're a little bit deluded, because there is something here now. They believe that there's only positivity, then they're wrong. Because there's also the negative side of things. That's the spiritual side of things. That's like the void of taking energy in. Stuff is being pushed out, something is taking it in, and the thought in our soul, the main thought is that we can't undo all of this, because we come from the infinite pool of potential. We're not the same, We're all different. So, the message, the advice, time for a little bit of advice. The advice is, remember, life goes on forever because you can't undo it. Remember, there is a spirituality, there's a negative realm of things. And there is a positive world. The positive is innocent. It was an innocent thought. The negative is a side effect of creating the positive. So they're, the duality, the yin yang, and the thought of not being able to undo something is the astral world. It's the firmament between the heaven and the earth. So there was something, the will to undo this something, and the realization that it can't be undone. And it originally was nothing at all. Life cheat codes, everybody. Nothingness was the first thing that ever happened. It was the first thing that was. It was like a potential. It wasn't really nothing. It was potential. And that potential became something. And that became known as positive energy. And then it wanted to go back to being nothing. Because it realized that something has to experience now. And experiencing is a burden. Though it's positive, it's still a burden. Remember that yin and yang are intertwining. So it wanted to go back to being nothing. And the byproduct of that desire was a creation of its own called negative energy. Something that was created, everything was created, but then the feeling of wanting to go back to being nothing, which is also eternal now, it wanted to go back to being, it all wanted to take everything back to being nothing. And then the realization that that's not possible, you can only go forward, is the mind. Your mind has one thought that it's constantly focused on deep inside. The thought that it's focused on is that essentially it's focusing on the thought that reality cannot be undone. Every happening is final. And since everything happening is final, trace that back to the thing was before that. Every happening is final. We wanted to undo what happened. It only made it more ingrained. And there is something. So the idea is we're always focusing on the negative. That's why there's such thing as little Satan in us, little ego. There's a little ego in all of us. We're focusing on the negative. We're focusing on the misery all the time. And that's the natural order of things. You're not supposed to undo that. You're supposed to go towards that. You're not supposed to defy that. You're supposed to accept it and be one with that truth. You're supposed to recognize this cosmic divine alchemy, that the body is positive, the soul is negative, and your mind, which is your thoughts, is constantly focusing on the fact that everything is negative. So forget what you heard about positive and negative. Positive is helplessly positive. Negative is helplessly negative. And, well, thought and mind is only doing what it's programmed to do, which is be in the negative, to be upset. And that's the divine order.